So you're making a really nice game and everything is great, but you eventually run into this situation where you want to increase the number of coins displayed in the UI based on what's in the actual user data. And the solution seems really simple. Instead of just adding the value of the coins, you make a new function called add coins, and then that function can tell the UI manager to simply just update the coin count. And when you try it out, it works. Now, as the coins are increasing in real time, you want to make this upgrade pop-up change the state of the button from red to green if you get the coins while this pop-up is open. So you add another line of code to your add coins function to update the state of the upgrade button. And when you test that out, it works too. So if everything is working, why am I even making this video? Well, if you follow this approach and continue adding more and more stuff in as your application progresses, you will soon find out that it becomes a mess. Let's say you want to display the current coins inside of the upgrade panel, so you add a line of code to your add coins function. And then you want to update the current coins inside of the shop, so you add another line, and then another, and another, and another. And now you have to put in conditions to check for the scene, because not all of these things might exist in the same scene. And now with the shop in, you probably have multiple little buy buttons whose state you want to update. And you can already see that it becomes a mess. And the more you add to it, the messier it becomes. Not only does it break the single responsibility principle from solid principles, which by the way state that a module should only have one reason to change. In our case, that's not what's happening, because we're not just handling the user data, we're also changing the UI inside of our data class. And on top of that, we're also violating a very important good practice rule, and that's functions should only do one thing. They should do it well, they should do it only. So how do we fix this? Currently, our user data calls add coins function, which tells the other two scripts to call their own functions. But instead of following this approach, we could do the same thing with events. An event automatically manages a list of functions it calls whenever it is triggered. Let's make a new event called onCoinsUpdated, and our UI manager script can tell user data's onCoinsUpdated event to call some function. And that function is added to the event's call list. Same thing happens with the house upgrade panel, and its function is added to the list as well. Now, when we call our add coins function, it doesn't need to manually call the individual functions. It can just tell the event to trigger, which in turn calls all the functions which are in the list. Let's code it out. So first of all, we define the event we're going to be making and mark it as public, so we can access it from other scripts. Then, wherever we want to listen to this event, we just grab the reference to the event and use the add listener function to tell which function we want to call when this event is triggered. In our case, that's the update coin amount text function. Now keep in mind one very important thing. We don't want to add the parentheses after the function name because we're not calling the function. We're just telling the event what function to call when it is triggered. Now let's add the listener for the house upgrade panel too. So now that we have all the listeners for the event, the last thing we need to do is to actually call the event listeners. We can do that by simply calling the invoke method of onCoinsUpdated event. A good thing to do is to add a question mark right after the event name. This basically tells that if the event is null or if there are no listeners, just don't call the invoke. By the way, there's two types of events in Unity, the system.action events and the Unity events. I highly recommend that you check out Jason Wyman's video on the difference between these two, but they essentially do the same job, except that Unity events has a nice UI to work with. You've probably seen this a lot of times because it's the same one as used by a button's onClick method. Now let's give everything a try and see how it goes. Amazing. So now we know how we can safely scale up our application and not make it a mess by adding everything into a single function. Even if the event has hundreds of listeners, it won't make a mess of our code because it will just remain these two lines. The additional listening functions can be described in their own scripts. There's a lot to cover on events because they're really powerful and can be used almost anywhere. This video doesn't go in detail about events themselves, so stay tuned for my video about events, event systems, and event-driven architecture. If you like this video, please give a thumbs up and subscribe for more content. Be sure to leave a comment if you have a suggestion on how I can make better videos for you.